going to talk about today is why SLDs, codependents, are vulnerable to narcissistic abuse syndrome. Narcissistic abuse syndrome, it represents a situation where narcissists who have a personality disorder, and I refer to them as pathological narcissists, and they either have borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, or are involved in an addiction in which the addiction compels them to act or behave narcissistically. When they harm another person, mainly an SLD or a codependent, and that is simply narcissistic abuse syndrome. When we have clients who are SLDs, codependents, who are involved in these relationships with narcissists, and they almost always are, the human magnet syndrome is 100% accurate for relationships that develop because of chemistry. So any relationship in which two people fell in love or came together because of an attraction, it almost is always right. Narcissistic abuse syndrome almost always involves an SLD. Anyone who knows a survivor of or a victim of narcissistic abuse syndrome will attest to that the perpetrator is a narcissist and they fit what I consider my diagnostic criteria for self-love deficit disorder. There are many reasons that make the SLD vulnerable for narcissistic abuse syndrome. The first is everything that is contained within the pyramid, the trauma, the core shame, the pathological loneliness. And by the way, pathological loneliness and SLDD addiction are 2-3 hour presentations by themselves. And anyone who knows an SLD or is a recovering SLD or currently struggles with it will attest to that if they should break up or be broken up with, they will experience loneliness that is bone-achingly painful. And that loneliness either scares them from leaving a relationship or compels them to find a solution to that to take the pain away, which is the next narcissist. There's also what I call PTSD paralysis. Many of us know what PTSD is, but we might not be familiar with attachment trauma. Attachment trauma is a form of post-traumatic stress disorder, except it is PTSD for a swath of long period of a person's life, specifically from birth to age 8. But when you are in these relationships with pathological narcissists and you have experienced narcissistic abuse syndrome, independent of the human magnet syndrome, independent of what we know about narcissistic abuse syndrome, many of these men and women suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is a mental health psychological disorder that is mostly unconscious because the brain cannot process, cannot handle the memories of harm and abuse and trauma, and it pushes them away. So you can't remember what the brain has disassociated from your awareness. But the PTSD paralysis is sometimes the conscious awareness that they just can't change. They can't move from a situation because their memories of leaving, their memories of being alone, their memories of feeling lost are so painful that their brain just shuts it down. The next topic I want to talk about is trauma bonding. Trauma bonding is when two people with similar traumas, traumatic histories are compatible. They feel this emotional connection, this feeling of familiarity, this feeling of understanding, a kinship of sorts. It's a strong emotional attachment between the abused and the abuser. Each one of the partners has a lifetime of violent, quote, loving relationship, both the SLD and the narcissist. They don't know anything else. In fact, if you're an SLD or a codependent, and let's say you are dating and you go on your first date and someone is really healthy, comes from a healthy family, they're neither an SLD nor a narcissist, typically that person will seem either boring, uninteresting, or will make an SLD nervous and anxious because they don't feel that they have anything that can be appreciated, loved, or desired. And there's a repulsion. But if an SLD goes on a date or meets a narcissist, and of course, SLDs don't look for narcissists, nor do narcissists look for SLDs. People are just looking for love. And someone starts talking about their divorces and their abusive parents, their abusive boss, their loneliness. The other person can relate to it on a deeply conscious and unconscious level. And that type of bonding is part of the glue that brings SLDs and narcissists together. So such trauma bonding is a cycle of violence that is usually perpetrated by pathological narcissists against SLD, which is just the nature of these relationships. The SLD, because of their attachment trauma, remember core shame, pathological loneliness, they come out of their childhood with what I call a relationship template. And that is an unconscious and conscious understanding of what feels comfortable in a relationship, what they're looking for. It's an unconscious recognition, familiarity. It's a paradoxical feeling of safety where you know and understand what that person is talking about, which means you know what to do and what not to do. If you know and you understand the unconscious forces behind the human magnet syndrome, you understand that an SLD feels insecure and unlovable, filled with core shame. It's suffering from loneliness. They don't think that someone who's healthy will love them. And all they know is how to take care of others who need them by sacrificing. That is their identity. That is what they know. That is their relationship template. And that drives them towards being attracted to, falling in love with, and being in a relationship with a pathological narcissist who ultimately almost always is responsible for narcissistic abuse syndrome. The human magnet syndrome is best understood by the dance. My dad, a pathological narcissist, once told me that what starts off as a soulmate inevitably ends as a cellmate. But the idea is it always starts feeling perfect and wonderful and warm, just an explosion of happiness. With an understanding of the human magnet syndrome, we understand what chemistry is. Chemistry is not conscious. What brings people together and holds them together is this unconscious force known as the human magnet syndrome. If you, because of trauma bonding, because of this paradoxical feeling of safety and familiarity, because of the human magnet syndrome, excitement of potential for love, but the chemistry part reflects what is unconscious. If we were raised by healthy, loving parents. Now, by the way, there's no perfect person, no perfect parent, but loving parents who are neither narcissists or codependents, our chemistry would be to be attracted to someone who was healthy, respectful. There would be a repulsion. I used the magnets as an analogy, to be repulsed by narcissists and be attracted by healthy people. But for SLDs, that attraction is broken. They're attracted to narcissists and repelled or repulsed by healthy people, which is why this chemistry thing is almost always wrong when someone is an SLD. I have a treatment program, and I call that my self-love recovery treatment program. I require people to stop dating for up to 6 months, because if you understand SLDD is an addiction and you understand addiction, say alcoholism, you don't go to an alcohol treatment center and allow people to keep drinking. No, they have to clean out because their drug of choice is a relationship. And because of human magnet syndrome, the relationship is always with the narcissist. Family systems theory is a theory that explains how the environment impacts individuals and why a family and the rules within the family, the roles within the family are so strongly implicated in someone's mental health or someone's mental unhealth. And so if you look at a family, for example, of alcoholic and abusive alcoholic and a co-addict partner and children. In the olden days, they would send the alcoholic to treatment. They would ignore the family, and the alcoholic would come home sober and full of promise and hope. But the family underwent no treatment or psychotherapy. The family would unconsciously sabotage the alcoholic because the family did not understand anything about mental health and happiness and closeness and intimacy, and they felt uncomfortable with the change. Even though they wanted the change, they didn't know what to do with the change. And the same thing can be explained in healthy families. If you have a healthy family, again, my definition of healthy is not perfect, and someone quickly develops an addiction, the whole family, they won't know what to do. Everything will be thrown off. Everyone will be anxious and uncomfortable. And so the person goes into treatment and solves their addiction. It comes back and the family can relax because the system, the family, the background is strongly implicated in either a person who suffers from narcissistic abuse syndrome to continue it or to solve it. If you're an SLD, it means that your parents are likely, one is going to be a pathological narcissist and one's going to be a codependent. It means that your friends are likely to be narcissistic. It means that your siblings are likely to be either narcissists or codependents or SLDs. None of those people know how to deal with healthy people. Although they might want you to be healthy, although they might want you not to be beat up, yelled at, gaslit, they will either unconsciously or consciously sabotage you because they feel a threat by you getting healthy. I've experienced this many times in jobs or in my family where I would try to call someone out. I would try to identify their narcissism. And of course, the whole family would rally around the narcissist and act like I was the bad guy because the family had no experience with honesty and accountability. And they could not even imagine holding one of its members accountable because they also had similar thought patterns and belief patterns. Ultimately, they banded together and I became the outsider. So it's important to understand family systems theory because there's so many sabotaging elements at play when dealing with pathological narcissists. There's a compartmentalization or a rationalization tendency. SLDs have this tendency to compartmentalize and take the good things as whole ideas that impact their thinking and beliefs, their commitment, their loyalty. He did this for me, or he was this for 2 or 3 years, or he is this, or she is that. And they don't bring those beliefs, they don't counter those beliefs with what they do harmfully or bad to them. And it's important to point that out and help them understand that to best understand who they are and what's happening to them is they have to look at the whole thing and the interactions of what is going on. SLDs have a tendency to break off from their feelings because sometimes their feelings are too painful. Break off from certain thoughts because to think those thoughts, they have to somehow come to terms with what's happening. And to identify that and to teach them that this is harmful, it's because of a mental health disorder, is to make a referral to a psychotherapist. Learned helplessness. I learned this a long time ago when I was working in foster care and working with impoverished families from generations and generations of poverty. They just come to understand that there's just no hope. And they come to learn that anytime you've tried to break the pattern, to stand up for yourself, to free yourself from abuse, that the pain and the punishment is so much worse. It's not worth it. And if you can change their thinking and their ideas and values about that, it can inspire them to try to break free from the abuse.
In conclusion, thank you all for your ongoing support. If I didn't have this community who identified with being self-love deficient or codependent and wanted so much to break free from this disorder that has dogged them their whole life, I'd have all of these passions for helping and healing people, the world, and I wouldn't have a place to go. And for this, I'm indebted. I want to recommend strongly that if you want to learn more about narcissistic abuse, you should start off with my book, The Human Magnet Syndrome. In this book, you'll find all the answers that you'll need and information about this problem, codependency, which I have now renamed to self-love deficit disorder, and understand why we who are self-love deficient or SLDs keep making the same mistakes over and over again. As I said in the video, why you always start off with hopes for a soulmate and end up in the despair of a cellmate. So please take a look at that book. And if you're interested in understanding what to do, unfortunately, I have not written my Codependency Cure book, but all the information about what to do in my self-love recovery program is included in my seminar videos that you can find at Self-Love Recovery Institute or selfloverecovery.com. Please consider this information. Let it inspire you. Let it give you the opportunity for hope. Many of you guys already know this. I love the quote by George Eliot. It's never too late to be the person you should have been. Please consider that. Don't settle for this painful suffering that you experience with these narcissists, whether they're your romantic partners, your wife, your husband, your family, your siblings, people you work with. You don't have to settle for the pain that they keep giving you over and over again. Reach for the sky and see what is yours and find inside of you what you're supposed to be. Get some therapy. Read my material. Watch my videos. Read other books. Watch other people's videos. But just don't stop. Okay, guys, take care and be on alert. I have a lot more videos and a lot more ideas to share with you very soon. Take care and goodbye.